Ever feel like, am I the only watch collector in the entire world? Nobody knows anything about the watches I have on my wrist. Seems like the only place that even talks about this is social media and YouTube. Have you been trying to build your perfect watch collection that seems to be an endless journey? Are you about to give up? You're not alone. Welcome to Marc Polo Explores Time. Today we're talking about long-term watch collecting, things that will lead you to early burnout, and ultimately guidelines that'll help you stay in this hobby for a lifetime. All right, let's go ahead and talk about early burnout. The first one is watching all this social media and reading all these blogs about watches and everything else. Because if you'll notice, you keep seeing basically the same watches come up all the time. These are the icons. If you watch any of my previous videos, you know that I claim that there are 12 categories or archetypes of watches out there for men. And usually the icons of those is what's constantly fed you in social media. And you'll get to this trap that I call the Pokemon trap, where gotta collect them all. And you don't. And you need to really make sure you understand all the different categories of watches. And very early on, the best thing to do is just kind of weed those out to see what you don't want, because you don't want a box of, the 12 categories of watches and you end up not just using some, because, not everyone's going to like a chronograph or an integrated bracelet, and not everyone needs like a world timer. Like, how many, unless you're a person that travels a lot or does business internationally, like, why do you need to know what time it is somewhere else in the world? So things to think about, right? The other thing you can run into that's kind of a trap is what I call the broken record trap. And that's where, something I did when I was very young is, I love chronographs. And, if I didn't learn all these things over the decades of collecting, I would probably just have one or two or three watch boxes just full of chronographs and like every color you could possibly get. So you can get in this trap where you end up with exactly that. Or say you fall in love with like a GMT watch and you're like, oh, I got to get every one in every single color it's available in. But the only change in the color is the bezel. It's not even a dial, right? So you can kind of get into that trap. And, honestly, if you get into these kind of traps from 10 feet away in a room, all those watches look the same. My mom, when I showed her a bunch of chronographs when I was young, I was like, oh, I'm interested in buying all these watches. And she looked at all of them and she looked at me and she's like, hey, all these watches look like the same one that's already on your wrist. Why don't you buy something that doesn't look like a stopwatch? And that's how I kind of got out of my broken record, because that was my first epiphany in watch collecting. Now, the other thing we need to talk about is the limited edition watch or the special edition watch. Those are things the industry throws at you nonstop. That's the fastest way for them to make extra money. And you have to remember, you really have to like a special edition watch and, over the regular edition watch, because in 10 years' time, if that watch is like some person's signature or something weird like that, is it just going to look dated in 10 years? Or are you better off buying the timeless version of it? The other thing you need to know about is that, there's this too much, too fast thing. So if you buy like a bunch of mid-tier watches within the first 6 months or something like this, those honeymoon phases overlap and nothing actually gets enough wrist time, and you can never figure out what you really want. You really just start kind of going after the thrill of getting the next watch, because part of the watch collecting thing is you're always looking for the next watch, right? And the journey there is usually a lot better than actually receiving the watch, because once you get the watch, you're kind of dating it and you're trying to figure out whether you can get through the honeymoon phase and whether you're going to keep it in your long-term collection. And then, of course, the last thing that happens that you need to realize is that life changes, and it's going to throw you all kinds of curveballs, and you're going to run into money running dry because you probably bought too many watches, or, things, big life events will happen, like marriage, children, maybe you're going for your master's degree, maybe you're getting your mortgage on a house. That'll temporarily stop your hobby, but you have to realize that this hobby's for a lifetime, and you can take a vacation from it, and it'll be here when you come back. All right, so watch collecting is a long, long, long lifetime journey. And we need to talk about guidelines that might actually help you survive that journey and not exit it. Remember, you can take a vacation from the hobby anytime you want to. It's not going anywhere. It'll be here when you get back. And if you think you miss any watches on the way, don't worry about it. They release new ones all the time. So, uh, things I've learned as a collector long term. One thing is that when I collect watches, I have developed a max watch system. Some people do this. And this is to prevent you from having, 15, 20 chronographs in your collection and not knowing what to pick in the morning. And this is pretty important to me. So, when I decided to start collecting on the luxury side of watches, I decided that I was going to keep a certain size. Now, we know that after you get past 6 watches, the usage model on the watches goes down really quick, and you're going to end up with something in your collection that's collecting dust. And on the luxury side of the watch collecting, that's a lot of money just to be sitting in your watch box for something that isn't used a lot. What I do is we know we have a set number of it for you. It could be 3 luxury watches, 5 luxury watches, 6 luxury watches. Just remember, when you get past that, your usage model may go down, and you may limit to 10. But what helps in the hobby is having a rotation of watches. So as time goes on, like your taste will change. You might start dressing differently later in your professional career, and then of course when you retire, things kind of change. And if you're going into the office all the time and wearing suits, you're not necessarily going to dress like that in retirement. So you might shift over to a more casual, or need more of a sports watch than the dress watches you needed in the office. So these are things you've got to think about. So what I always look at is, hey, I have so many in my collection, and if for something to come into that collection, something needs to go out. So I have to be willing to give up something I really loved in my collection for that to go out. And what I've noticed, as you age is, yeah, your collection is going to change quite a bit because your needs are going to change. And the other thing you have to think about is, hey, if I'm spending money like on luxury watches, and it's a low usage model watch, is that really something I want to invest in? Because, for instance, when I was younger, my dress watch was used pretty often, and this is my formal watch with a black face. And this is something that, I would use for, date nights, and I would, for the opera, and, for Broadway, and for all these weddings I went to when I was young, and the occasional funeral. And as time went on, uh, that scenario changed quite a bit. Like, my formal dress watch is not used anywhere near as much as it used to these days, because everyone's been married, especially like nieces and nephews and stuff like this. And at one point, the watch was mostly used for like opera and for funerals, because as you age, everyone around you starts passing. And at this point, it's only used for the opera, because everyone that's older than me at this point is already passed. So, things to think about whether you want to invest a lot of money into a particular watch like that. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is shopping. So I always promote going in store to try on your watches, because specifications on watches lie. Heights, they will hide height thickness on the bottom, and depending on whether you're wearing a watch on the above the bone or below the bone, that watch might actually look a little funny because there's too much on the bottom. The lug to lugs is probably the best way to look at watches, but lug to lugs lie, because it depends on how long the lug is, how angled the lug is, and if it's a integrated bracelet, you might as well just add 2 millimeters usually to that to try to get an idea how it's going to fit. So I love going in. Long-term collecting, I like finding a salesperson that I truly click with, and that way, if I ever do want a special edition or a hard to get watch, they will go and defend me to their managers to say, hey, this guy's a long-term watch collector, it's going to stay in his collection, and he deserves this watch. Now, what I do, though, is that I have developed what I call the 3-visit rule. So when I go and I'm looking for watches that I would like to buy and I'm interested in, and I mean, let's be honest, I usually find these online first, and I've been hunting for them for a while. And especially if it's a new release, this rule is pretty important, because what I do is I go in, and the salespersons I work with know this is how I am. And I'll go in, and I won't take a lot of their time, but I'll say, hey, this watch came out, or I'm interested in this watch. Let me take a look at it. I will put it on my wrist. I will take photos and videos of it moving around to see how well it actually fits, how it drapes on my wrist, and all this kind of stuff. And I'll say, okay, if I'm not interested, I'll just tell them up front. I was like, no, this isn't the watch for me. I say, well, I might be interested in it if I am interested in it. So what I'll do is I'll come in the second time. And the second time, I'll do the same thing. I'll take photos and videos. I will make sure I get photos and videos, of the watch under the desk, so I can see it in a darker light, and then kind of go up to the window and try to get photos and videos of it to see how it looks different in those lights. And if I still like it, that's great. But I'm still not going to buy it. The third time I come look at this watch, and this is really weird because this has happened to me a couple times. I'll come in and look at the watch for a third time, and I'll be like, nope, I'm over it. Not the watch for me. And sometimes when I come in on the third time, I'm like, I have to have this watch in my collection. So this is why I do it's basically the 3 visit rule. Now, other things that you need to worry about for your rules, or you need to think about the hidden horizon, which is the maintenance costs on these watches. You might want to have some kind of rotation. Now, the thing is that a lot of people are worried about this, and I will give the following advice. If you have enough watches in your collection, mechanical watches in your collection, and you're rotating them enough, power reserve's not going to matter, and the accuracy is not going to matter as much, because if that watch is running even 30 seconds slow per day, if you're only walking and wearing it one day, you're not going to know the next day that it's going to be a minute off, because it's not going to get worn. You have too many watches in rotation. It doesn't really matter if the accuracy goes that bad down and you actually need maintenance on it. Now, if at the end of the day, you're like, hey, man, this thing's lost a couple of minutes or something, yeah, it's probably time to do some maintenance on it. And most of these people charge the same amount of maintenance for whether the watch just flat out stopped working or whether it just needs maintenance. So, I would usually say, as long as the plus or minus on it is, tolerable for you for wearing it for one day in rotation, just take it when it's broken. But remember, we're talking about a watertight watch, like something that you use for swimming. You do need to worry about maintenance of the seals on those, because the last thing you want is for water to get into your watch. Those seals do not last forever. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is an important part, and this is where we are talking about watches and dating. And specifically, when you buy a watch, guess what? You're dating the watch, because you don't know if this watch is going to end up in your permanent collection or not. So what I always say is, there is that rule where it says, you're buying too much too fast. And for you to take something and bring it into your collection, it's just like dating a person. Like, you need to know them for all seasons and see if it actually belongs in a rotation in your watch box. Now, if you start adding another watch to that collection too soon and trying to put something else in rotation at the same time, this could throw you off. Now, it depends if if it's the same genre of watch, this can really happen. If it's a totally different genre and it's a different part of your rotation in your box, it may not matter as much. But if it's like your daily wear or something like this, or even if it's like, hey, I have 2 weekend watches and I replace one weekend watch, well, just replace one weekend watch, not both weekend watches, because you'll never get an idea whether you like it. And then long-term collecting, like, you really want to see if the watch is going to work for you long-term to determine whether it's going to be a part of your permanent collection or whether it's going to go out the door for something else to get in. But unless you give it enough time, you're never going to know. For instance, one time I was gifted a watch that I did not ask for. And I was really worried about it. I was really worried about the bracelet on it. I didn't really care for the bracelet. And let's just say, over time, it grew on me, and it is the one watch that is most used in my rotation. It's unbelievable. I never thought it would be, and it's my most used watch, and it is not ever going to leave my collection at this point. You got to remember, this thing is a lifetime journey. Rome wasn't built in a day. Marco Polo did not get to his destination by teleporting there. Enjoy the watches you have. Build real relationships with salespeople, and you're not alone in it. Thank you for spending time with me today. And remember to be good.